everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Melissa Jurkoic. I'm the co-founder of Diversify Thinking, a startup focused on creating inclusive cultures from day one with startup leaders, and a chief customer experience officer here at Adaptation, a startup here in the Northeast of the US and New Hampshire, where we focus on user experience. So it won't be a surprise today that I'm here to talk to you about your users and why they matter and why they don't have to suffer when we make this amazing transition to the cloud. It seems timely, given the pandemic, that we're talking about this kind of a transition. So I'm excited to share with you some insights and maybe a different perspective and a way to think about your end users more than you probably really ever have. And that's not for me to tell you that, you're doing anything wrong. I think as technologists, we love to chase the next new shiny object. I'm one of them. So I've been in technology now for 25 years and ranging in roles from engineering and product management, solution architecture, all the way to where I am today as a CXO. And I'll tell you along the way, we get really excited about technology and all the, groundbreaking advancements. It's moving at a much faster pace than we do as humans, which is great. What the problem with that is the humans sometimes get left behind. As technologists, we get really excited about the next big thing. But what we really need to remember is without the people adopting it, it doesn't matter, right? So I want to talk to you today about that and really share some things I've learned along the way. And this is a hard truth. So, again, we get really excited about the things that we're doing and how easy it is to achieve some amazing things and advancements with technology. But unfortunately, if your users don't embrace what you've delivered, it doesn't matter. That's a really hard pill to swallow for us to say, oh, geez, all our hard work and all the effort we put in, it doesn't actually result in any true value if your users don't embrace it. And so, there's something to be said for executive buy-in. We often look at that, right? If you're part of any sort of digital transformation or really any project or transition in technology at all, you have to get executive buy-in. Why? Well, because they're the ones with the wallet, right? They're actually funding your initiative and giving you the approval and the thumbs up to say, yes, I want to do this and I will invest in this. So executive buy-in is critical for the success of any project. This is not news to anybody, I'm sure. What I'm here today to challenge you to think more about is that arguably, and there's another stakeholder that's being left out of the picture who is equally as important as the executive, and that's the end user. End user buy-in is something I want you to all start to think about and really put at the forefront of your planning. How are you going to get buy-in from the end users? Because this truth right here is about your end users. If they don't embrace the technology, if they don't use it and adopt it and stay with it, then all the funding you got from the executive won't matter, because a successful implementation of a digital transformation or a project or anything you're doing really with technology does not equal successful adoption. You don't automatically get one with the other, right? Just because you finished your code and you were really excited and it looks great and you put your stamp of approval, and maybe the executives even put their stamp of approval for the funding that they provided to you, but your users didn't adopt it. So now no one's using it. It's shelfware, right? It's just sitting there. If I was with you today, I would say how many people have been part of a project that went on for months and never actually was used by any actual end users. I would raise my hand, right? Like, it's true. In 25 years, I've seen this multiple times. It happens. And it's not because your technology is bad. It's not because you as an engineer, if that was your role, is bad, or you as a leader didn't lead the team well. It was because you forgot about a stakeholder. 90% of the time, this is the reason why these projects fail, because we need the people to be bought in, the people that are actually going to leverage the technology, the people that are going to use the solution. Because when we put something new in front of someone, we're displacing something they did before. And that's another thing that we need to remember. The reason why end users are so important is because they're already doing something. The question is, were they happy with what they were doing before? Was it good enough? So we need to dive deeper. Who are these people? Who are these end users? This other stakeholder, this mystical creature that I'm referring to that we often forget in this picture. And there are people like this, that they see these wonderful things we're so excited about as technologists, and we put them in front of them, but to them it's all change. It's just more change, and maybe they're already very happy with what they have, or they're not happy, but it's okay, because they know how to do it. The interesting thing about humans is, even if it hurts, they'll continue to do it because they're used to it. We like comfort. We like things that are familiar. So change with technology, especially for people that aren't technically savvy, which a lot of these people, these end users, are not, right? So this is the other challenge. They're not technically savvy. We love technology as technologists, true to ourselves are. We love it, but they don't. That for them, it's a means to an end. It's just a vehicle to do the job that they're doing. So they don't get excited about the technology unless, of course, it does something that creates value for them. So if it doesn't have all the features they want, they'll say, that's fine, I'll just wait for the next one, right? If it's too hard to use and they're under pressure to do their job, they're not going to adopt it because they've got a job to do. Their job isn't to learn your new tech. Their job is to do their job, right? And so it can't be an obstacle. It needs to be an extension of them. So I often say, I like to look at how do we humanize technology, or look at the human side of technology and really create experiences that are an extension of these users, not an obstacle, not something they feel like they have to fight with, but something they feel like is organic. So how do we do this? How do we get end user buy-in? So that as a technologist, you're excited about technology, but I've hopefully proven to you now that end user buy-in is as critical as executive buy-in, and we've got to get these people on board. And here's some of the feedback. We've seen this from our own customers. We've seen customers in the past, I know I have in my career, that would stay on a DOS solution, if anyone remembers DOS, versus moving to Windows, and even forget about the cloud, on Salesforce or any other cloud-based CRM, for example, because they know it, because it works. And regardless of what evolution or new features would be available to them, it's not an easy sell. They want to stay where they are because they're able to do their job. They know how to do their job, and they don't want the disruption. So that's what we have to remember, is what we think is exciting as technologists to these individuals, to these end users, it's disruption. You're displacing something they were doing before. It could have been a pen and paper. It could have been another technology solution. But whenever you put something new in front of these people, you're displacing something. And so we have to recognize that's change. It requires change management, and it requires buy-in. And that's why I want to just keep driving that point home. Your end users really matter in this process. So what if I was to tell you that there's this mindset? It says architecture up here, but for those of you that maybe aren't technologists and architecture seems like a big leap, think of it just a mindset, a different way to think about your process, your solution, the way you're going to execute on a large digital transformation. We call that hub and spoke here at Adaptation. And really what we focus on is creating these spokes around a centralized place where all of your essentially business knowledge, business domain stays intact, but you're able to cater to your end users. So it's a way and a thought process and a mindset to focus on these new stakeholders that we leave behind so often, these end users, and a way that you can apply scale to a solution where maybe now, instead of just ripping up the road and displacing everything all at once, like that Big Bang theory that I promise you isn't going to work, because humans don't like that level of disruption, and there's too much change management involved. Instead of that, what if there was a way that we could ease into the transition and work with our users through a architectural pattern, a thought process where we're putting their needs first? And so that's what spokes are all about. They're really about creating those catered, tailored experiences to personalize for those users and the jobs they're doing. And how do you do that in a way that then underneath, under the covers, you can change technology all day long, because now you've abstracted their experience in a way that you can evolve and scale your technology, which is what we always want to do as technologists, and take advantage of the latest and greatest without disrupting your end users. And so this is the challenge I want to put towards you today, is really think about the next step in your evolution of technology. How do I create this hub and spoke model where architecturally I'm keeping things intact, which means maybe I don't move from a legacy mainframe or a legacy platform to the cloud right away. I start to focus on the end users first, and then I can displace the technology because I've separated them from it. And so they don't get to feel that disruption. There is change because I have to change something in order to create this separation, but it's done with them. So how do I do this? So you're bought in, you're saying, Melissa, I get it. End users are as important, arguably maybe more important to user adoption for sure. As executives, I understand that I need to appreciate that any change is a level of disruption to these individuals. And I see that there's a way to think about this differently. There's this hub and spoke pattern that I can apply to my thought process and my planning and even my architecture, where I can start to think about them as like the first stakeholders I need to address, but how? So what we do at Adaptation is we follow what we call our 5 key UX design principles. And so we walk through this with our customers. And we really do start with, it won't be a surprise, knowing who your users are and what are they trying to achieve. So obviously you want to know what their users, who your users are. And we call this identify the job to be done. So every individual, every end user has a job they're trying to do, as I mentioned before, which is why when you change things, you may be making it harder for them to achieve their outcome, for them to complete their job. And at the end of the day, we want to complete our jobs. I mean, that's inevitably what our goals are. And we don't want to see technology as anything more than an extension of who we are trying to achieve this outcome. It should be a vehicle to make it easier to complete our jobs. But how do you know that if you don't understand the job to be done? So first and foremost, step 1, understand what your end users are trying to achieve. And really dig deep there and understand not just what they tell you, because users like to tell you and customers like to tell you exactly what to build. And I say, stay in the problem space. I often tell my own team when we're working with customers, love the problem, be like existentially curious and really inquisitive about that. Ask a lot of questions to truly understand not what they're telling you that they're trying to do, but what are they actually trying to achieve? What outcomes are they trying to reach? Because once you paint that picture, there's all different avenues for us to get there, but you have to understand the destination first. So identify that job to be done and be careful not to get into the solution space yet, because we're not talking about the how, we're talking about the what. What are they trying to achieve? So how do you do this? Well, you collaborate, right? So it's probably not a surprise that if you want to ask questions, be inquisitive, and work alongside people to understand what they're truly trying to achieve, you do this with them. I often refer to this as inclusive design. With diversified thinking, I'm awfully really, obviously very passionate about diversity and inclusion, but inclusive design, really what I mean there is building with them, not for them. So again, as an engineer for several years, I totally get the world of getting a spec with some very detailed requirements, going off perhaps in your hoodie in a dark corner somewhere and putting your headphones on and just coding, until your heart's content. I've been there. I've done that. And really what I call that is building for someone, right? Someone hands you a spec, you build it, you come out of your coding cave, the zone, and you hand that off and you're really excited about it. You feel really good about it. You've even tested it. You've looked at the art of the beautiful code you've written, but that's building for someone. So there wasn't a user along for the ride with you. You weren't sharing information with them. You weren't asking a lot of questions. So again, this is why I referred this as inclusive design. What more can we learn when we build with our users instead of for our users? And what can we adjust and really bring them along for the ride? And the benefit here, if you remember from just a few moments ago, I said you have to get end user buy-in. What better way to get buy-in than to build and design with them versus for them, because now they feel like they've built it. So of course they're bought in. It feels completely organic to them. So we'd be remiss if we didn't always stick to, right in the heart of what I refer to as hub and spoke is really maintaining database integrity. And why is this important? Well, there's tremendous value for your business, right? So the importance of the value of a system, I'd love to say that we use tech just because it's fun and we like to enter things into a system, but it's not true, right? So there's a way that this data all comes together and culminates so that people understand the health of their business. They can do forecasting. They understand when, they need to be more proactive about things and be able to adjust their strategy because of things that are failing in the business. They need this level of insight. The only way you can get this is if you maintain that integrity and you keep things really solid and easy to gain that insight. Well, the way to do that is to have true user adoption, because your data is only good as the people that are entering it, right? So many of you have probably heard garbage in, garbage out. So we believe building these spokes, again, as I referred to just a moment ago, and providing the best experience encourages user adoption, which then has the amazing benefit of not only maintaining database integrity, but promoting database integrity and accuracy. And now you're able to gain insights that you truly trust because you know that everyone's adopted the system and they're really using it in the best way possible to achieve their jobs to be done. So now you know who they are, you've worked with them, and you understand how you're going to build an experience that allows them to enforce and really maintain and support database integrity that's so crucial for your business success and measurement. You need to make sure not only do you know who they are and what they're trying to achieve, but where are they trying to do it? We saw a lot of this in the pandemic, right? Everyone in a really fast pace had to learn to work from different places, different devices, just different ways of working. And so you really need to listen around, like, how are people working? Where are they doing these jobs? That's going to change your design. You know, there's a very different perspective designing for a mobile experience than for a desktop experience, for example. There's a very different perspective if you find that some things that are automated maybe shouldn't be, right? Maybe they always meant to be done manually on a pen and paper. That's not bad. Like, we as technologists want to automate everything. Automating everything just makes sometimes bad things happen faster. So try to reel yourself in from that. Again, stay in the problem space a little bit more and really identify the best solution, which may not always be technology, truth be told. And then finally, you have all of this going and you have a great engine of design and collaboration with your users, and you're getting that buy-in. You will lose your buy-in if you don't listen to your users. So the most important piece of all of this is to listen to your users, create the feedback loop, and make it really easy for them to give you feedback. I have found in my experience that we as technologists, I'm generalizing here, but we can be a little bit afraid of user feedback. And why is that? Because we can believe that someone's going to ask us to do something that's going to cause a complete rewrite, a refactoring, a re-architecture. Basically, just put re in front of everything, right? Those are scary initiatives, and they sometimes can be expensive. So we sort of are deterrent to receive feedback. And I would say, don't be that way. Be very open to it, because you don't always have to say yes. Sometimes the best way to work with your users and continue to have that sustainable buy-in is to get the feedback, but don't always say yes, because sometimes your users are wrong. And obviously, sometimes they could be asking you for something they can already achieve. Again, this is where we don't let them tell us the solution. We make them tell us the problem, and we ask more questions, because they may be able to get to that outcome already. They just don't know. So now there's a training opportunity. So I always say, like, make sure it's easy to get feedback from your users and make sure you respond to it. Nothing worse than feeling like you're giving all this feedback, but you don't feel anything coming back to you. You don't feel any confirmation that your feedback's being heard. What will happen is you'll stop giving feedback. And now, once you stop giving feedback, you're not engaged. When you're not engaged, guess what happens? You lose them. And so we'll talk about why user adoption, user retention is very different and equally important as well. But this is part of how we create this feedback loop to keep your users, right? So once you have them, you want to be able to keep them. And in order to keep them, you have to listen. So how do you do all of this? And what are the benefits? Because what I'm asking you to do obviously has some cost to it. It has cost to it because it's not easy to do these things, right? There's a way that you can do these things, and you may not get value out of it if you're not really clear on what it is you're trying to achieve. So that we call that an ROI, right? Like, we are asking someone to make an investment. I'm telling you that investing in user experience, investing in this process, it is an investment, right? It's not for free. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes a different thought process, obviously. So there are benefits, though. These benefits are tangible. So talk about user buy-in. You get your end users bought in, and you're working alongside with them and collaborating and creating this inclusive design process. You're going to reduce training costs naturally, because they feel like they built the solution with you. So it's very organic. Again, it's an extension of their own human experience doing their job. They probably don't even need training, if anything, because they know exactly what it's supposed to do and how it will do it, because they've helped you identify the design for that. So huge benefit there. I think, training is always sometimes an afterthought. I shouldn't say always, but it is always important, right? So what better way to hit that off at the pass, but then to like engage with them so early that they don't even need the training, or they need minimal training. So huge value add and huge ROI. Of course, because there's less training and less ramp up, you're going to accelerate user adoption, because again, you bought them in so early in the process, they feel like they were part of building it with you. Optimizing team workflows is a great thing that I get really excited about, because we want to make sure that there are things that I mentioned, could be automated that aren't, or things that are considering to be automated that shouldn't be. And so we need to look at workflows end to end to identify those different jobs along the journey of a team, and maybe find that there's things that were automated that never worked properly, or things that shouldn't have been automated, or things that they're doing manually that would be easy to automate. And you can add some great wins and success stories if you really pay attention to those optimization opportunities. And then finally, adoption is one thing, right? I said successful implementation does not equal successful adoption, but certainly once they start and you've accelerated user adoption, how do you keep them? And this is where retention comes in. Well, if you create those feedback loops and you're really listening to your users, not only do they have the buy-in at the beginning of that adoption lifecycle, but you'll keep them, you'll retain them because they feel bought in all along the way, right? You're getting their feedback, you're improving and optimizing the system based on their feedback, or you're sharing different ways they can use the system that maybe they didn't even realize they could already to achieve those outcomes based on their feedback. And now they're staying with you, you're keeping them engaged. And this is really, really crucial so that you don't see this great hockey stick of people joining and using your solution and then it falls off, right? So that's, I should say, successful implementation does not equal successful adoption, and successful adoption does not equal successful retention, right? So there's still work to be done. This isn't a one and done. This is an ongoing life cycle where you create these feedback loops. And again, your end user buy-in is not just at the door, it's throughout the life cycle of your solution. And you want it to have a life cycle, right? We want our solutions to live on basically for forever, really. So a little bit more about me. Feel free to take a snap of this link tree if you want to get in touch. I'm happy to talk to you about all things diversity and inclusion, as well as user experience or other thoughts. If you want to trade war stories around adoption successes or failures or challenges that you may be having, happy to chat more about that. Really, really excited that I was able to share this with you today, and looking forward to engaging with all of you in the future. Just remember, a successful implementation of any project, digital transformation, or anything really that you're trying to achieve with technology does not equal successful adoption. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's Joe Eames with ng-conf. If you like that video, be sure to click subscribe either here or here, somewhere over here. And if you're looking for something more, here's another video for you to watch here or there or somewhere.